After 7 years, the Cavs decided to part ways with Darius Garland, their homegrown all-star, in exchange for a 36-year-old James Harden.
Harden to the Cavaliers for a second-rounder and Darius Garland. How do we get to this point?
An all-star point guard in the middle of his prime for an older star well past his prime. At a glance, this seemed ridiculous. Garland was their 5th overall pick back in 2019, their prized prospect whom they poured so many resources into developing and growing into the player they wanted him to be. Over the years, he saw all his peers and former teammates get traded away, from Cedi Osman to Colin Sexton and Larry Markkinen. Through multiple eras in Cleveland, Garland was the only consistent factor that the Cavs relied on. And he did it the right way. No controversies, no complaints, just sheer hard work. Every single fan was sad to see him go. Is a washed-up James Harden really better than having a 26-year-old Darius Garland, the guy you've molded into the perfect point guard for this team? Garland's contract would lock him up until at least 2028, and Harden could leave the Cavs anytime after the season is over with his player option. Was Garland's toe injury that bad to the point where it convinced the team to get rid of him? Let's take a look at why the Cavs realized they could not win with Darius Garland. And ultimately, there was a hard ceiling with him as the point guard.
Yeah, look, James Harden is 10 years older, but he's played in a lot more games, and these decisions were really made to maximize the next 2 years.
Prior to the arrival of Donovan Mitchell and after the departure of LeBron James, the Cavs were struggling. And their biggest dilemma during those years were, what should they do with their backcourt? At the time, they had a backcourt of Darius Garland and Colin Sexton. Garland was, more of a natural point guard, but Sexton was an undersized shooting guard who was still working on his playmaking ability. The Cavs figured the two of them were too small to work and didn't want to commit a massive amount of money to both of them, so they had to pick one. In the 2021-22 season, Sexton caught a stroke of unfortunate bad luck. He tore his meniscus in the second week of the season. With an entire year running the offense by himself, Garland had a breakout season, his first ever All-Star appearance at the age of 22, and he legitimately became one of the best young point guards in the league. More importantly, the Cavs won 44 games, a winning record for the first time since the LeBron era. Every metric showed the Cavs were a better team with Garland than Sexton, and they also didn't feel like an undersized backcourt would work in the long haul. So the Cavs packaged Sexton in a blockbuster deal to acquire Donovan Mitchell. Initially, you might think they didn't get much bigger since Mitchell is also an undersized shooting guard, right? But he's much stronger with a much longer 6'10" wingspan. And with the Cavs on the brink of returning to the playoffs, adding Mitchell to the team would solidify their position as a playoff team for years to come. The Cavs weren't sure if Sexton had the potential to ever be as good as Mitchell, so this trade made sense. They paired a point guard like Garland with a bona fide score-first guard in Mitchell on a team with 2 defensive-minded big men. They were ready to win now, and the results were staggering.
Over the timeline, going for the win! Oh! He gets it. Mitchell steps back.
As the years went by, however, the Cavs' opinion of Garland slowly shifted. It started with the same debate they pondered for a long time, the small stature of their backcourt. While the team experienced great success in the regular season, even winning 64 games, they never came close to matching that same dominance in the playoffs. Specifically, there's always something that other teams can exploit, and Garland's small stature became a topic of debate once again. It's not that he doesn't try on defense. We've seen plenty of examples in the playoffs where he puts in a tremendous effort to defend. It's just, whenever he gets caught off a switch, almost every single opponent has a size advantage over him. He's not just 6'1", he's 6'1" with a slight frame in a league that's been trending towards bigger point guards for a while. Offensively, in the playoffs, the Cavs have experienced some extreme stagnation, resorting to over-relying on Mitchell to do everything, because nobody else can create a play to score. To make matters worse, starting in early 2025, he's had a recurring big toe injury that haunted him. It caused him to miss half of the 2025 playoffs, and in the games he tried to play in, you could tell he was clearly hindered by it. This was the same big toe that flared up once again by early 2026 as the trade deadline approached.
And Garland shaken up on the play. Garland still laying on the court.
The Cavs evaluated Garland's injury and grew concerned about how long it's lingered for. For much of the season, there wasn't much noise surrounding a possible trade involving Darius Garland, and he never expected he'd get traded halfway through the year. But as the trade deadline approached, with his toe injury being more serious than previously anticipated, The team figured maybe it's time to ship him out when he still has value. At this stage of the Cavs' window to contend, Mitchell is getting older, their bigs have already peaked, and DeAndre Hunter, who they thought was the perfect wing player for this squad, turned out to be a complete sham. They needed to try something different, something to shake up the roster, and so they viewed Garland's contract as being the most valuable and also the most tradable. Even with his big toe problems, there's bound to be a team itching for a chance at a 26-year-old all-star level point guard. And there was. Right when this trade happened, the critics were out in full force. If the Cavs wanted to get rid of Garland to improve their defense, why in the world did they get James Harden? A guy who was notoriously the worst defender in the league at his prime, and surely he's even worse now, right? But there's one thing defensively that Harden is infinitely better at: defending in the post. Here's a fun stat. In 3 seasons, from 2017 until 2020, Harden held opponents in the post to just 0.68 to 0.73 points per possession. While the sample size isn't super big, he was statistically the best post defender in the league in the span of those 3 years.
Even to the fourth quarter yet, he's got 23 points, does Ben McLemore. Really good defense on Siakam.
Obviously, this was back in Houston, and he's only gotten older, but his build has not changed. Harden is a stocky 6'5", 225, probably the strongest guard of all time, and when taller players try to back him down, they can't. He's immovable, and defending in the post does not require as much energy as the perimeter, so it won't tire him out as much. It was just a happy coincidence that Harden was very good at defending there. You can legitimately put him on a bigger dude in the post, and he will hold his ground. This is huge. I mean, you can argue that a 26-year-old Garland is better than a 36-year-old Harden, but the ability to not get exploited to the extent that Garland does, that's a massive bonus the Cavs don't need to worry about anymore. Now, obviously, Harden is not a good defender anywhere else. You put him on the perimeter, he gets cooked, and it's even worse at his age. But over the years, his teams have found a way to effectively use him and make sure he doesn't hurt his team as much anymore. However, besides all this defense talk, which doesn't move the needle much, it's offensively where James Harden changes the game. The Cavs saw immediate success as he seamlessly fit into their offense, as there's 2 things he brings to the table that Garland never could. The first is a natural feel for the game that few players in NBA history could match. Harden's ability to control the offense is otherworldly, and he always has a tight grasp of the system no matter which team he plays for, and he understands the best angles to hit his teammates at the right spot. Even though he's a top 3 scorer of his generation, right next to Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, it's his passing that's become severely underrated. That's why even as he ages, loses his speed, and his scoring diminishes, he still makes a massive impact with his unparalleled court vision. Also, by having another score-first guard alongside him who can also break down the defense, Harden does not have the same pressure to score like he used to. Secondly, his knack for drawing fouls, which was actually a weak spot for the Cavs before. They were near the bottom of the league in free throw attempts prior to his arrival. This is an aspect of the game that most folks would say is not exactly fun to watch, especially since this is Harden we're talking about, the guy who made an entire generation of basketball fans hate foul baiters. And he's still going strong as he approaches 40. The fact is, Garland was never good at drawing fouls, and he could never get his defenders into foul trouble like Harden can do. I know it's not fun to watch, but it's a skill that puts pressure on the defense in a way that Garland could not do. Harden's ability to draw fouls correlates with slowing the game down and giving the Cavs a reliable source of points in a half-court setting. While Garland is much better in transition, he was never as adept as creating a play out of thin air like Harden is. And the Cavs struggling in the playoffs were largely due to a stagnant offense, where Mitchell was forced to do everything by himself. Now, to be able to throw the ball to Harden and have him bail you out with free throws, that's incredibly valuable. Obviously, I don't think Harden is the ultimate solution to your playoff woes. I even made a video a while ago about Harden's history of underperforming when it matters most, so there's no guarantee this trade is a long-term solution. There's the other issue of Harden's contract. He signed a very short-term deal with the Clippers, a 2-year deal with a player option, but is also expecting to re-sign on a longer-term extension with the Cavs, which would probably extend him until he's 40 years old. It's a risky decision because from age 36 to 40, a player can severely fall off at any given moment. Remember the sad story of Chris Paul? In the span of a single summer, he went from a productive player to completely useless and unplayable. This trade also greatly accelerated their timeline. The Cavs at one point looked like a young budding roster filled with homegrown talent who developed together. Yet years of disappointment made them turn their backs on their once endeared point guard. Now their window to contend for the championship is tied directly to how long James Harden can be productive. Who knows, maybe this can be Harden's big break. Anyway, that's all folks. Let me know your thoughts on Darius Garland and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Do you think this was a mistake by the organization to give him away? Or do you think this was the right move given their circumstances? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and of course, as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.